The funny thing I always hear people say is, well, I've already been to a training. One training's not going to do it. Do you understand? I attend trainings all the time. I've been in this industry almost 20 years. I'm still learning. I still hear things that I can use. I still hear things that can apply. You need to attend trainings over and over and over and over again. You need to make that commitment. This is one of the most important things you'll ever do because your mind opens slowly. We start to let in information over a period of time. So what's going to happen is you're going to hear the same thing over and over and over again, and then one day, whether it's a month, 4 months, 6 months, a year later, it's going to click. And as soon as it clicks, it's going to cause your business to take off. I gave the example earlier. I've been saying the same thing about how to approach and pique interest to some of the leaders in Los Angeles over and over and over again for months, for 2 months now. One of these individuals I thought was listening to me, but wasn't listening to me. She wanted to try it her own way, like most of us. Finally, after 2 months of hearing it over and over, I even printed out a script and said, say this exactly. Still didn't say it. Finally, she said it exactly word for word the way I taught her to do it, and one of her top people was interested, was a Red Apple. Same thing in Asia has been happening. They're using the scripts, it's working. You need to come to the trainings consistently so that this information, even though you hear it 50 times, there's going to be a day where it clicks and your business takes off. You need to be a student always. You never stop learning. You never stop hearing different ways to explain or teach the business, but you need to be a teacher as fast as possible. If you don't know how to get up and do a training yet, you need to keep coming to the training. You want to learn how to teach this business, you want to learn how to explain it, come to the training. You want to have new reps join in your business, get them to the training. Does that make sense to everybody? Step 6, corporate events. We just touched on it. I have a rule. It's a must. There are certain things that you could do to be successful in this business. There are certain things that you should do to be successful in this business. But there's absolutely just one thing that you absolutely must do. It's not an option. If you're going to be successful in this industry, if you're going to be successful in this company, you must attend all corporate events possible. Every new distributor must attend a corporate event. I don't care how many people you have on your report, how many people show up on your team. You cannot count the number of members on your team by the number of distributors on your downline report. You count the number of people on your team that are at the corporate event. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so corporate events, step-by-step training. How many of you have a different vision today than you did before you came to this event of Jeunesse? Raise your hand if you have a different vision. How many of you could see that if you had another 10 people here, how that would affect your business? I took 13 people to my first corporate event back in 1996. That 13 people in just over a month turned into 300. Another month turned into 1,000. All by taking people to the corporate event. It changed your mindset. It takes people and it changes their thinking, which gives them that edge that they need to be successful. Step 7, repeat the system. Every new distributor every week needs to plug in as many times as they can to the system. Webinars, conference calls, watching you do meetings. You keep the distributor going. You have to stay plugged in to stay lit up, meaning you have to stay in the system, around the other people that are building their teams, in the trainings, in the presentations. You need to stay in it in order to continue. How many of you notice that sometimes life gets in the way? How many of you have ever tried to go to the gym? How many of you notice that when you go to the gym, you get very excited, you're all passionate and pumped up, you're ready to go? In my case, sometimes I may go once or twice or 3 times, and all of a sudden you get busy. Something happens in work, something happens with your relationship, and you miss a day going to the gym. How many of you have done this? This group doesn't even go to the gym. I'm curious what you do. So, how many of you notice that if you miss a day going to the gym and you try to go back, it's just hard. If you get off track and you're not consistently going to the gym, it's almost impossible to go back and get started again. How many of you noticed this? Or with a diet or with anything. It takes 21 days to form a habit. In Jeunesse, you keep going as long as you can until you hit your goal. You must stay in the system every day, every week possible, and all your team needs to stay in the system. That will keep them going. That will keep the momentum and the motion going long enough for them to have success. Now, let's talk about my favorite subject, finding leaders. How many of you would like to find some leaders underneath you? That's it? Hey, listen, I'll be the first to tell you, I know that this is a lot of information. I know that this is a lot of announcements, a lot of training. It's like information overload. But you know what? The things that you're hearing right now are going to be the things that are going to carry you the rest of the way through your career. What the Diamonds were talking about today in their training and the conversation we had, what I'm teaching you right now, even if you can't remember everything, it's going in your brain. So don't worry, it's all good. Make sense? So, finding leaders. Every distributor must follow the system and stay plugged in on a weekly basis. You have to become the very thing you want to attract. You have to first be the type of leader that you want to attract. You cannot find leaders if you're not acting like one. You cannot find leaders if you're not plugged into the system, if you're not learning how to do a presentation, if you're not learning how to do a training. You won't be able to find them. Now, for those of you who are not confident enough, that don't necessarily think you could be in front of the room, it's okay. You still need to come to the presentations, the trainings, you still need to learn the language so that you can go out and find people who want to be in front of the room. Does that make sense? Okay, so your role is to keep bringing as many people on your team to attend as many of these steps in the enrollment process. So you're like a promoter. Every single week, you're talking to your team members about the next meeting, about the next webinar, about the next thing you're doing. You want to push and keep them plugged into the system as much as possible. So you're constantly prospecting, you're constantly helping your team prospect, and you're constantly pushing your team to be in the system as much as possible. That's how you keep them going long enough. Number two, your role is to identify leaders, which we're going to talk about. Number three is to work with your upline to train the leaders, and I'm going to explain that in a minute. By the way, I'm going to end up having these translated into your languages after the event, so you'll have these slides. Is that okay? So, let's talk about it. This really is the key to the business. What is a leader? A leader has high energy. A leader is simply high energy person, excited, passionate about life, wants to go out, make something happen in their life. I don't care what your background is. I don't care what circumstances you came from. A lot of us, like myself, came from very humble beginnings, came from not such great circumstances in the family life. A lot of us had to overcome adversity. I know if you talk to a lot of the Diamonds, they've all had to overcome adversity. I mean, I know the group in Chile had to wait for the products to arrive, but they kept going, they kept pushing, and now look where you are, right? So, high energy, self-motivated. A leader is self-motivated. They have a natural drive that wants to push forward and create something new in their life. You don't have to tell them to get out of bed to go. They're up and going. You don't have to tell them to keep doing calls. They're doing them. You don't have to tell them to show up to the meeting. They're at the meetings, okay? Strong work ethic. A leader will consistently do things. They'll consistently do three-way calls. They'll consistently come to meetings, presentations. They'll do whatever they have to do, whatever they can do at all times. The strong work ethic is one of the most important things you could find. I have a leader that I had mentored in my organization named Jeff. Now, Jeff didn't have any talent. Jeff was very shy. He was extremely nervous. He used to come to my house twice a week just to practice the presentation. So he'd stand in front of me. He'd come over about midnight, 12 o'clock at night, after we got done building. He'd stand in front of me and try to do the presentation. And I'd say, okay, put your hands down. No, don't say this. Say that. No, don't make that face. You know, I was like telling him how to do the presentation. Jeff did not have talent, but Jeff was motivated and he had a work ethic. So he kept going. He kept going, he kept improving, kept practicing, kept improving, kept talking, kept improving, kept coming over, eating all the food in my refrigerator, doing presentations, right? He did this for years. Today, Jeff makes over $200,000 a month. Absolutely. A leader, somebody good with people, somebody that has good charisma and natural characteristics that are good with people. Now again, if you're not this person, you want to find these people. So this is what you're looking for. A leader has a positive attitude. See, a leader, no matter what happens, they're going to be positive about it. It doesn't matter what goes wrong, they're going to keep moving forward. There are 1 million reasons why you could find not to do Jeunesse. Every day you could have a brand new reason why not to do Jeunesse. You don't need any more than one reason. Find one reason. Find one reason deep inside of you that you must make this work for you and your family. Find the one reason and you will have success. It will take care of everything else. That one reason will keep you positive and keep you going long enough to reach your goals. Belief in themselves. Leaders believe in themselves. Now, Samson hit on it. You may not believe in yourself in this business at first. You may not have that confidence in that belief. But the people on your team are going to believe in you and support you long enough until your confidence builds and you build your belief. Does that make sense? The actions of a leader. You're going to notice a leader when they come to your group. Right away, they're going to influence other people. They're going to be able to sponsor people very, very easily. They'll just be able to sponsor people. They won't even need your help sometimes. They have influence. They're able to influence other people for whatever it is about them. Okay? They're going to attend all the weekly meetings, the webinars, the trainings. They're just going to start doing it. You're not going to have to call these people and say, hey, come to the training. They're going to be the first one there. I remember when I got started, we didn't have a meeting. So guess what? I started a meeting. I bought stereo equipment. We rented the room. We set up the chairs. We made sure everything was set with the registration. We did everything that we had to do. No one told us to do that. Most of you, no one told you to get things going in your country. You just did it. That's what a leader does, okay? A leader wants to learn, always, how to present, how to train. And I don't care if you're already a diamond in Jeunesse. The true leaders always want to be a student. The true leaders always want to learn more, improve who they are, improve their game with the personalities, the presentations, everything. The other thing is, a true leader will just start to build their group without you. You're going to see their group start to grow and you didn't do anything. How many of you would be okay if you had 3 or 4 crazy workaholics going nuts 24 hours a day underneath you building a group and you didn't do anything? How many of you would be okay with that? That's what you're looking for, okay? That's what a leader is. Now, being a leader, the choice is yours. You don't have to be all the things that we're talking about. The goal is for you to talk to enough people, to use J-Mobile, to send enough campaigns, SMS campaigns, to use J-Social, to send enough videos out, to talk about the products, to expose as many people as possible until these people show up in your team. Does that make sense to everybody? You don't have to be this person to be able to find these people. So you could use your upline to help support you in finding these people. Or, for those of you who really want to, the choice is yours. You can actually be the leader. You can learn how to be the expert. You can learn how to do a presentation. You can learn how to do a quick start training, how to get a new representative started, how to be an expert and have someone edify you, how to do the trainings, how to promote events, how to close people, how to handle problems that may arise. If you want to build a giant organization, these are the tools that you're going to need. The best way to learn how to do this is to find somebody who knows what they're doing, tape record them, videotape them, watch and listen to it over and over and over again until you own it, until you could say everything the same way. You know what we did? We scripted everything. Everything from piquing interest to edification, to inviting to a meeting, to inviting to a PBR, to closing people, the quick start training, it was all in a script. We're going to do the same thing with Jeunesse. It's going to be word for word. where all you have to do is memorize to say this and just go say the exact same thing. We're going to put this all down. So for those of you who want to step up and really be the leader, be the person that's leading your group, these are the things you need to learn. You need to learn how to be an expert. Now, in teaching people how to become an expert, you can teach anybody from day one. There's no real requirement. However, for me, I would start to focus on people that have already reached the position of pearl or above. I want to focus on people who already show me that they can sponsor people by themselves or easily. You want to focus on people that have actually done something. The big mistake that a lot of people make, that I made when I first got started in the industry, is I was trying to train every single person in my group one-on-one. I was spending hours one-on-one trying to teach everybody how to do the presentation, trying to teach everybody how to do the training, trying to teach everyone how to be the expert. And what I found was I was trying to teach people who were not motivated to do everything. Now, why would I try to teach people who were not motivated? It makes no sense. So for me, I'll teach everybody how to do the presentation that wants to learn. I'll do meetings every week or webinars every week. They can learn how to do a presentation. They can learn how to do trainings. But for my personal time, my time where I'm going to mentor somebody, where I'm going to really focus on them, on what they say, how they say, and really put all my attention on them, I want them to be pearl or above to get my time. They have to show that they're serious. They have to show that they deserve my time. Does that make sense? The fastest way to find out who to teach is you look for the people that are building the business without you. You look for the people that don't seem to need you, the people that are just doing it. That's who you want to teach. Now, the key is you must keep working deep in your organization long enough past everybody until you find your leader. Now, what does that mean? That means I sponsor somebody in the business. I do not assume that they're going to be a leader. I do not assume that they're going to be somebody who's going to go all the way. I must assume that they're going to stop doing the business at some point. So, the only way that I can help people, how many of you like helping people? I do too. It's really fulfilling. It's one of the best things about Jeunesse. It's all based on helping people. But the only way you could help people is go find really successful people underneath them. Does that make sense to everybody? So don't wait. How many of you have ever heard this? Never fall in love with someone's potential. You would not marry somebody based on their potential, would you? No, don't do it. You don't fall in love with someone's potential. You only look at activities and results. So, I sponsor somebody in the business. 10 best, 10 easiest, private business reception the first 48 hours. What do? I take that person, I meet their friends, their contacts. What do? I'm doing the presentation. 10 best, 10 easiest, 48 hours. Red apple, green apple, rotten apple. Meet their people. 10 best, 10 easiest, first 48 hours. Red apple, green apple, rotten apple. Meet them. Next, on and on and on. I'm building down into my group. I'm looking for leaders. Now, what happens is, at some point, you're going to look back over your shoulder and you're going to see somebody that just went pearl or just went sapphire. While you're helping build down their group, they're showing you and they're building their group. Does that make sense to everybody? What you do is once you find that person, you give them the opportunity to learn everything about how to be an expert. Now, when you're teaching somebody, this is a formula that you use to teach people anything, whether it's a presentation, training, how to be an expert on a three-way call, how to close people, how to handle problems. Use this formula. Step one, you tell people. You tell them what you're going to do. For example, I'm going to do a presentation. It's going to be 7 different parts. It's going to be the introduction. I'm going to talk about the company. I'm going to talk about the industry. I'm going to talk about the products. I'm going to talk about the compensation plan. I'm going to talk about training. And I'm going to talk about closing. This is what I'm going to do. So you tell them what you're going to do. Then you show them 5 to 10 times. So I bring people with me to everything I do, whether it's a one-on-one, two-on-one, and I show them 5 to 10 times. They'll see me do the presentation over, and then I tell them what I'm going to do, and then they see me do it again. And I tell them what I'm going to do, and they see me do it again. And I tell them what I'm going to do, and they see me do it again, 5 to 10 times. So they're hearing what you're going to do, and now they're seeing what you're going to do. Okay? Then what you do is you allow them, after 5 to 10 times, you allow them to do part of it. So let's say you're doing a presentation. Maybe after 5 to 10 times, if they feel confident enough, you allow them to do the first part. They talk about the industry, they talk about the company, you talk about the products, the comp plan, and so on. And you keep doing this. You let them do a little piece of it, you watch them, you correct them, you make sure that they are on track. Anything they miss, you say, you fix. You go back, you tell them again, you show them again. They do the next part. You manage the results. You watch them, you correct them, you fix anything that needs to be fixed, you tell them, you show them, you do it again. Does that make sense to everybody? This is how you duplicate. This is how you get people duplicated. They need to watch you do it over and over and again until they build their confidence. Does that make sense to everybody? Now, with this, every piece of this, being an expert is what you need to do. This doesn't happen overnight. This happens over time. They learn to do the presentations, the trainings, how to get a new distributor started, how to be an expert, promoting events, how to close people, handle problems. Everything you're doing on a daily basis as a leader, the up-and-coming leaders that want to take on that role, they're watching you, you're telling them, you're showing them, you're letting them do part of it until they get comfortable, confident, and pretty soon, first they do the first half, then they do the second half. You're doing this back and forth over and over and over. Eventually, they're doing the whole thing and you're watching. I used to go to meetings in like a Starbucks for coffee. I would have one person that I was prospecting. I'd show up, one guest, and I'd have 7 potential leaders sitting behind me, recording everything. Because every time you're building the business is an opportunity to teach your leaders, to teach your up-and-coming leaders. Now, what happened was, I'm doing the presentation, and there's 7 people sitting there recording. What's the prospect thinking? Oh, this must be important. People are recording it, right? But what you're doing is you're training. People used to come to my house on my team. They'd listen to me do phone calls. They'd listen to me, do presentations. They listen to me doing trainings. They're watching me. They were always watching, learning, listening. I was telling, showing, watching. Does that make sense to everybody? You need to do this with every single person on your team. Now, what we're talking about is anchoring a leg. When you anchor a leg, basically what you do is you identify leaders underneath your people. Does that make sense to everybody? You're identifying leaders underneath your people, and then you're helping identify, teach, train, show until they get independent. Once you get a leader independent in one of your legs, you continue to help that leader identify 2 more leaders. Does that make sense to everybody? That's called anchoring a leg. That's when you anchor a leg down. So you keep building, building, building. You find a leader, you tell them, you show them, they watch, you repeat the process over and over and over. Pretty soon, that leader is independent. But you never let them go. You keep watching that leader, and now that leader is looking for leaders with your support. That leader is telling people, showing people, watching. Does that make sense? And you continue to do this until you have at least 2 other leaders underneath that anchors that leg. At that point, you're going to have 2 to 3 leaders under your leg. That leg is going nowhere. It's going to be long-term, huge growth, geometric growth, and building. Does that make sense to everybody? Now, real quick, I just want to touch base. Tomorrow morning, we're going to do breakout sessions in these rooms. We're going to have a Spanish breakout session from 9 to 12. We're going to have a Chinese Mandarin session, and we're going to have an English session. We're going to go through various things in detail. We're going to go through the J Builder, the J Social, the J Mobile in a lot more detail and a lot more question and answer so that by the time you leave, you will not have any questions. You will know exactly what you need to do to be able to use the tools that have been provided. We're going to go through and do some leadership trainings. I know there's some tremendous leadership trainings for Spanish that are going to be set tomorrow. So from 9 to 12, there's going to be 3 breakout sessions in different languages. So if you want to attend the English, or you want to attend the Chinese, the Mandarin, or the Spanish, it's going to be available. Does that make sense to everybody? So here's the deal, real quick. This business is very, very simple. You have to be motivated. You have to stay in the system. You have to stay plugged in with a vision. Your vision needs to be 10 times larger than your group. You need to see possibility 10 times bigger than the strongest person on your team. I know Sergio had huge vision. His leaders had huge vision. They kept going way before they had any reason to see that Jeunesse was coming. They actually brought Jeunesse to Chile because they believed so strongly in the possibility, they created it to happen. Does that make sense? And I know that every single one of you are doing the same things. Jeunesse is in its infancy. Most people won't even start hearing about this for a few years. You have a window of opportunity right now. You have a window of opportunity you will never have again. With these new tools, with everything that Jeunesse is launching, you'll never be in a position where you are in a meeting this small for a corporate event. Does that make sense? There's going to be meetings in each of your countries, 10, 20, 30,000 people in stadiums in each of your countries. You have a chance right now. You will never, ever have this chance again. If you get focused, if you can focus and talk to people and look for red apples, don't waste time with green apples, don't waste time with rotten apples, focus on the red apples, focus on finding leaders. Stay consistent, stay plugged in, stay motivated, keep pushing every day, every week. Don't stop. You go for it. How many of you can go for it? Let me ask you a question. If you knew for a fact that you could be making $100,000 a month in this business, how many of you would go for it? How many of you would do what it takes? How many of you would go to weekly meetings every time? How many of you would go to the presentations every single time? How many of you would look for those red apples? Let me ask you a question. If it was going to give you what you wanted in your life, would you do it? Could you do it? Could you go for it? Could you focus for the next 30, 60 days like you've never focused in your life and go for it? Could you do it? Will you do it? All right, then let's do it, all right?